Today, a mixed picture for the job market. American employers added less jobs than expected, but the unemployment rate also dropped. And the supply chain crisis hits the footwear industry hard, but New Balance is thriving. What's its secret? That and much more coming up on NTD Business. Good evening. Great to have you with us. I'm Paul Graney. The chief scientist of the World Health Organization says that the Omicron COVID-19 strain appears to be very transmissible based on initial data. She says it's not possible to know if it would become the dominant strain yet, but says Omicron has now been discovered in 38 countries. And a big miss today in the labor market's closely watched jobs report. American employers added 210,000 jobs last month, much fewer than economists expected. But the unemployment rate fell by 0.4 percentage points to 4.2%. It's a 21-month low. Here's the president today on the unemployment number.
We're looking at the sharpest one-year decline in unemployment ever. Simply put, America is back to work, and our jobs recovery is going very strong.
Part of the miss could be due to seasonal adjustment. Without the adjustment, the economy added 770,000 jobs. The labor force participation rate, which has been stuck at historically depressed levels, also edged up to 61.8%. That's the highest level since March 2020. Also, fewer Americans stayed on the job sidelines due to COVID. The number of people who said they did not look for work because of COVID fears dropped to 1.19 million, the lowest number since the pandemic. That could be partly due to more workers getting vaccinated, feeling it's safer for them to go back to work. But in Nevada, it's just become the first state to impose a surcharge on unvaccinated workers, though the penalty won't take effect until the middle of next year. For unvaccinated workers, there will be a $55 monthly charge. There'll also be a $175 a month surcharge for their spouses, partners, and dependents 18 and older. The state says the fines will help offset the costs of required COVID-19 testing, and revenue from the surcharges is expected to be about $18 million a year. Exemptions are available for religious or medical reasons as required by law. And some companies have imposed surcharges for unvaccinated workers, but no states have done so till now. And the rising crime in New York City has made quite a lot of headlines this year. Now, a new report claims that Bank of America is giving its workers tips to keep the muggers at bay. NTD's Miguel Moreno reports.
We're at Bank of America Tower. Now, Bank of America is a prestigious business, so you'd expect its workers to dress nicely, maybe even lavishly. Well, a new report claims that the bank is asking its younger employees to dress down. Why? To not attract any bad attention. New York City's dealing with a crime wave. In the last 28 days, the city's seen 24% more robberies than in the same time last year. The New York Post claims Bank of America is responding to city crime. Its article says executives told young employees that wearing a Bank of America logo or dressing up could make them a target. The bank got back to us, but their statement neither confirms nor denies the newspaper's claim. It says the safety and security of our employees is a primary focus. We provide employees with a number of resources to support their security, including car service for early, late hour travel, as well as safety guidelines that are informed by our corporate security team. Outside the bank, New Yorkers appeared unfazed by the rising crime. Man, do you feel safe in New York City right now?
Yes, I've been living here all my life. So, you just got to know how to get around the do's and the don'ts and the who's and the who's. That's how that go.
Do you feel safe in New York?
Yes.
Do you feel safe in New York?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, why do you feel safe?
Because safety is a frame of mind.
As part of his plan to fight crime, Mayor-elect Eric Adams says he'll form a plainclothes anti-gun and gang unit. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
And Leslie Wexner, reportedly Jeffrey Epstein's biggest client, is stepping down from his position as chairman of the Columbus Partnership. The nonprofit says the transition was in the works for a while, though. Wexner is a billionaire and former CEO of Victoria's Secret. Bloomberg reports Wexner had a long-standing relationship with Epstein. Epstein reportedly managed his fortune for years. In 2019, Epstein was charged with sex trafficking minors as young as 14. He died by reported suicide, awaiting trial. But just this week, the trial of his close confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell, began in Manhattan. She's facing sex trafficking charges related to Epstein. And billionaire Mark Cuban just bought a whole new town. He's now the owner of Mustang, Texas, located about 45 minutes south of Dallas. Cuban told the Dallas Morning News he bought it because a buddy needed to sell it. It's unclear how much the owner of the Dallas Mavericks paid for the 77 acres, but in 2017, Mustang was reportedly up for sale for $4 million. Cuban didn't say what he plans to do with a tiny town of 21 people. And Wall Street closed out a bumpy week with more losses today. The Dow fell 60 points, about 0.2%. S&P 500 lost 39 points, about 0.8%. The Nasdaq dropped 296 points, nearly 2% today. And big banks on Wall Street are reportedly considering using Bitcoin as collateral for loans. Although the banks haven't confirmed it yet, several analysts weighed in on their thoughts on whether they think it's a good idea. Didi's Phil Zoe has the story.
As the use of Bitcoin becomes more popular, recent discussions have turned to the possibility that banks may consider using Bitcoin as collateral for cash loans.
So this is just a rumor as yet.
Finance professor John Edmonds says banks are always looking for new ways to make money.
They would lend against crypto, and they would be very careful to do it in such a way that it would conform with regulation.
Banks could conceivably do this using third-party liquidation agents without actually holding any Bitcoin themselves.
Large investment banks tend not to touch Bitcoin because it's a very risky financial product.
Because current U.S. regulations make it hard for banks to deal with cryptocurrencies directly.
I think one of the big challenges will be is monitoring its collateralization level. How much of it is available relative to the value, since it does move in value quite a bit.
But banks want to find ways to get involved in the fast-growing asset class.
Cybercurrency has come up so fast that it's not really clear which entity should regulate it.
Chris Klein at Bitcoin IRA says, if this works out, who knows what else is in store?
What are these banks going to realize about the technology and Bitcoin itself and how it can relate to other business operations in their lives?
Phil Zoe, NTD News.
And business activity in the U.S. services sector picked up significantly in November. But its recovery is held back by, you guessed it, material and labor shortages. All 18 industries in the ISM survey reported stronger new orders, particularly transportation, warehousing, and retail. 11 of the 18 industries reported improvements in hiring conditions as businesses battle for talent in the run-up to Christmas. In a separate IHS report today, output increased in 6 of 7 key sectors, led by technology and basic materials. Only output of consumer goods fell, hamstrung by supply shortages. And those global supply shortages have hit the shoe and apparel industry hard. But U.S. footwear manufacturer New Balance is successfully shaking off the shortages. The company said this is all thanks to its Made in America strategy. NTD Charles Gao has the details.
The New Balance trend is bouncing back.
The 5K run in New York City, I have to prepare for this. I have to train for this every day.
Apart from its cross-brand collaborations and celebrity effect, the company's success boils down to its all-American manufacturing. New Balance COO Dave Wheeler told Fox News, the pandemic has certainly accentuated and highlighted the importance of domestic manufacturing.
It closes that gap for them to get their product to market a lot quicker, which I think can help drive more sales.
Right now, New Balance has 4 major factories across the U.S. Wheeler says each factory makes about 2,400 pairs of shoes every day and supports at least 1,000 employees. A 5th factory is on the way to meet increasing demand. In order to boost U.S.-based production, the CEO of Future in Design, Nicolina Womack, points out several sectors that need more investment.
We need to look at is that skill training and retooling, and also the equipment that is going to be needed to be able to make a more resilient supply chain.
Womack thinks this provides an opportunity for U.S. political leaders to step in and actually strengthen the domestic supply chain.
I think there needs to be other incentives or taxes. If you're going to go for the lowest price, you're going to have a tax on the impact of the lack of being able to use local workforce.
According to the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, about 99% of shoes sold in the United States in 2020 were imported. China and Vietnam are currently the main suppliers to the U.S. Charlie Gao, NTD News.
So joining us is the Maryland Secretary of Commerce, Kelly Schultz. Schultz works with manufacturers and investors in Maryland and across the United States. Secretary, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Perfect. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for reaching out to Maryland.
Secretary, on the supply chain challenges we're seeing, are companies and manufacturers coming to you saying we want to bring production back home? And if so, which industries specifically?
Yeah, I think they are, and they're going to continue. It started, I would say, slightly before the pandemic. Maryland has a good track record when it comes to manufacturing jobs altogether. But during the course of the pandemic, we have seen an uptick in that. The primary areas that we see in manufacturing include high precision parts machining and fabrication, electronic component manufacturing, and pharmaceutical manufacturing, which has been really big these days.
Because I suppose it's only understandable that when the manufacturing jobs went overseas, we had less people training in those areas, less people willing to take up those jobs. You feel if we can bring the jobs back again, it's only a matter of time before we have the talent to fill the positions.
That's right. And it depends on the type of manufacturing as well. So what we have seen consistently here in Maryland anyway is a type of employee that would need a higher tech skill. And fortunately, here in Maryland, those skills transfer between industries. So we have a very highly technically trained workforce in Maryland. It's just something that we have because of the educational status that we have and our academic programs, both at the K through 12 schools, community colleges, and the four-year universities. So we're very comfortable, especially when you talk about the type like pharmaceutical manufacturing, where we are going to need those technically skilled individuals, and then moving into more of the trades type of manufacturing and fabrications. Obviously, you need a lot of CAD and need a lot of different technical training, which we seem to have a good deal of here in Maryland, which is fortunate.
It sounds like you have a really hands-on approach in Maryland. Has your plan or strategy changed much since the pandemic started?
I would say that our strategy for manufacturing started when Governor Hogan came into office in 2015. And so the state was very intentional on being able to make sure that we increased our manufacturing supply. I said between 2015 and 2020, we have increased jobs every single year. We are ranked number 8 in the nation as far as the states that with manufacturing growth, and our average annual pay increased over those years by 7.7% to $79,000 for an average manufacturing job. And a lot of that comes from the fact that our policies that we instituted, one is called More Jobs for Marylanders. It's specifically for intentional manufacturers to want to be able to increase their job creation and the jobs that they have so that they can expand their businesses here in Maryland, or we are attracting businesses from out of state to come to Maryland. And this provides them with year-end tax credits that are relatable to the salaries of their employees. That is one of, and this, it's been around, I guess, for 5 or 6 years. Don't quote me on the time when it was passed, but that has been one of the leading causes of our success within the manufacturing industry. All businesses, no matter what industry it is, they want to be incentivized to come to a state. So states have to be intentional about the attraction methods that we use.
There you go. Where there's a will, there's a way. Secretary Kelly Schultz, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
And Royal Dutch Shell has pulled out of a plan to develop a new oil field in Scotland. Comes following pressure from environmentalists who now hope the project may be shelved altogether. Shell had a 30% stake in the Cambo project off Scotland's Shetland Islands, but said on Friday it made the decision based on what was best for the company and its shareholders. The project's controlling partner, though, says it still plans to move ahead with it. The Cambo project has faced stiff competition from environmental groups such as Greenpeace, who want Britain to stop developing new oil and gas fields altogether. UK authorities granted a license for the project in 2001. Now the government is considering whether to authorize commercial operations. And a mega green hydrogen plant is now being planned in Europe. Hydrogen energy isn't very popular right now, but how great of a role could it play in the future? Didi's Fake Quarter gives us a look.
Spanish power company Iberdrola and Sweden's H2 Green Steel are investing $2.6 billion into a mega green hydrogen plant in Europe. The facility will have an electrolysis capacity of 1 gigawatt. For comparison, the global installed electrolyzer capacity was at 0.3 gigawatts in 2020. Lionel Kambeitz is the executive chairman of Delta Cleantech. Kambeitz says this plant is the beginning of the hydrogen economy.
There's a great genesis and an opportunity for the hydrogen economy to begin to flow. And eventually, and I think Europe will lead the way, eventually a complete cyclic system will involve the production of hydrogen utilizing renewables, and those renewables will utilize electrolysis, and there'll be no emissions in the production of hydrogen.
The project will be funded through equity, public funding, and green project financing, and it will be built on the Iberian Peninsula, the location of Spain and Portugal. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
And Chinese authorities say they will help Evergrande deal with its debt crisis after the property giant warned it may default. Evergrande sought help from its provincial government, and Chinese officials in Guangdong province spoke with Evergrande's chairman before deciding to help. Officials will now send a working group to help Evergrande manage its debt and maintain operations. Chinese central bank authorities blamed Evergrande, said the issues stem from its poor management and blind expansion. At the end of June, Evergrande reported $300 billion in liabilities. That includes almost $20 billion in international bonds. International credit rating companies now give Evergrande a rating near their lowest levels. But Evergrande has managed to avoid defaulting by making payments ahead of grace period expirations. And Chinese ride-hailing giant Didi Global announced Friday it will be delisting for the New York Stock Exchange. It's giving in to pressure from Chinese regulators worried about data security. The company said it will instead be pursuing an initial public offering in Hong Kong. Didi was already facing heat from Beijing when it decided to push ahead with its IPO back in June, as despite being asked to put those plans on hold. As its authorities were investigating the company's data practices. And still to come this evening. The global luxury market is booming. Sotheby says it'll reach a record number of sales this year. And how much would that be? And McDonald's is bringing back one of its fan favorites this holiday season, the holiday pie. How long will it be available? That and much more coming up on NTD Business.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and My Pillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on My Pillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 My Pillows. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
The ongoing supply chain crisis? Big tech and other woke companies giving billions to the liberal left? Where will you shop for Christmas? Go to Mammoth Nation. We created a safe place for patriots to spend their money for Christmas and beyond. Shop thousands of products from American and veteran-owned businesses. Shop to the right, give to the right. This is how we fight tyranny. Go to mammothnation.com right now and become a lifetime member today. Use promo code EPIC and save 30%.
You are not just watching a performance. You are witnessing a culture reborn. Now, you'll see what the modern world has never seen. China, before communism. Shen Yun 2021, live on stage. Coming to West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, November 8th through January 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com/SFL.
Welcome back. Honda is recalling over 720,000 SUVs and pickup trucks because the hoods can open while the vehicles are moving. The recall covers certain 2019 Passports, 2016 through 2019 Pilots, and 2017 through 2020 Ridgeline pickups. Honda says in documents posted Friday by U.S. safety regulators that hood latch striker can become damaged and separate from the hood. Dealers will either repair the striker or replace the hood if necessary at no cost to the owners. Honda will notify owners by letter starting January 17th. And for the first time in its almost 280-year history, auction house Sotheby's will top $1 billion in sales. This is not an isolated case of sales of luxury items continue to grow. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
Sotheby's predicts that global sales of luxury items will top $1 billion for the first time this year. That's not only a first for the 277-year-old company, but also a record for any auction house. And this is not an isolated phenomenon. eBay is witnessing a similar trend.
We are experiencing strong growth right now, absolutely. Again, double digit in 2 of the luxury categories that we started focusing on, both in handbags and watches as of a year and a half ago.
Global luxury sales are expected to outdo pre-pandemic levels. The largest players like LVMH and Hermes have already made a strong recovery. And Sotheby's has auctioned off almost $1 billion in luxury items, up 50% from all of last year. So what's driving this growth?
People found the convenience of online. People found that, hey, you can find cool, rare, unique items online that you can't offline. So that's a huge part of driving growth.
That's not the only reason. According to Sotheby's, auction participants under the age of 40 have increased by 1/3. And Kamdar agrees that millennials and Gen Zers are the key drivers of this growth. For them, sustainability is a strong preference, and they often turn to pre-owned products. That means buying resale is also becoming more mainstream.
It's not only the primary market that's growing to hit over that $1+ billion for the first time this year, it's also the secondary market, and that pre-owned market is a huge catalyst for this overall growth.
And luxury categories are expanding as well. Next to jewelry and watches, now sneakers, handbags, and whiskey are added to the mix. This year reportedly saw record sales in the US and in Asia. And the number of bidders has doubled compared to 5 years ago. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And the personal belongings of the late designer Karl Lagerfeld will go up for auction in Monaco this week. Items include his trademark fingerless leather gloves. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Karl Lagerfeld was an icon of the fashion industry. He was celebrated as much for his distinctive personal style as he was for the fashion he designed for Chanel and others. He died in 2019. Sotheby's is auctioning off a collection of his belongings.
The fingerless gloves, I think, were part of Karl Lagerfeld's personal style. He wanted to keep having all his fingers function, but not show them. He considered it more courteous vis-à-vis other people. So his hands hidden, and his taste for fingerless gloves, which are part of this rock star look he adopted in the last 20 years of his life, and which makes him so popular today in the whole world.
Also up for auction are the cushions his cat Choupette sat on, and an embroidered model of his cat with an estimated price of up to $8,000. Also up for sale, items from his personal wardrobe, decorations from his many homes, 3 Rolls-Royce cars, a pair of chrome-plated dumbbells, and some elaborate trunks and suitcases Lagerfeld traveled with.
Here we have a Dior trunk. It was made for him, and it's a good example of Lagerfeld's way of life, with all his travels and the luxury which surrounded him, while keeping a practical side to it. We think this has its place in the collection, because he loved luggage a lot.
After the Monaco leg of the auction, the sale moves on to Paris later in December, then on to Cologne early next year. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And 'tis the season for McDonald's to bring back a fan-favorite sweet treat, the holiday pie. The dessert has returned to menus in select regions across the country. McDonald's has released the festive pastry for the past 10 years, but the areas of availability vary. Fans have spotted the pie in places including Oregon, Illinois, and Texas so far this year. The chain describes it as a mouth-watering pastry. It's filled with vanilla custard based in a buttery crust and topped with rainbow sprinkles. McDonald's says it will be available until early January, but won't be released nationwide. And that's the latest business updates for today. You can still catch NTD Evening News with Stephanie Cox at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. For NTD Business, it's all for this week. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.